I remember the principal bringing me in and says, you can't say that to these kids.
I'm trying to be very careful, right? Next question is
this.
Okay, you want to address that? Okay.
Let's stay on that.
With a new motion to potentially dissolve the high school league. How do you feel about that? What is your thought process?
And these outside entities that think that they can come in and do a better job, are we willing to use a person to decide whether we did a good job or not? A night and a day, it costs us in excess of.
Okay. What is up, family? Today is special. Man, this is by far one of the biggest guests I've had thus far when it comes to South Carolina athletics. I have the commissioner, y'all, with me today. And it is an honor and a privilege. Man, thank you for coming on. Thank you for making time. How are you doing today?
The pleasure's mine. I'm doing great. We've had long weeks going on, getting our winter sports taken care of, but we get a chance to exhale for a second.
Yep.
Then we get back to work. But the pleasure's all mine.
Yep. I appreciate that. And there are a lot of things that the public wants us to tackle, they want us to address. But first, I would like to get inside of your mind to learn a little bit more about your wisdom, your knowledge, and your upbringing. And so how was playing football in high school an instrument that helped shape you into the leader you are today?
I actually played football and basketball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enjoyed
those sports. I mean, I came through during a time when you played everything. I was a school of 800, and the same athletes followed the same coaches. The coaches coached almost everything that we had. I'm a product of Charleston County, a little country boy, from a little town called Hollywood.
Yes,
absolutely. Actually, from a family of 15 kids. My mom and dad had 15 kids.
15 kids?
I'm number 13.
What?
Of 15. They had 9 boys and 6 girls. Wow. Yeah. So very big family. A lot of things that we did was all family oriented. My mom's education was at the 8th grade level, and she didn't go any further.
Wow.
My dad's education stopped at the 3rd grade level.
Wow. But
they had a true understanding of the role that education played.
Yeah.
I liked playing sports because if I came home, there was a lot of chores to be done.
I
would say there.
Even with 15 kids?
Trust me, they would just pass it down. It's the next man up.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything in the world. But, playing sports was big for me, and the people that touched my lives were so big. I mean, I still talk to them. They're my mentors. They helped to shape me to be the person that I am. I mean, and listen, I wasn't an easy person to get along with in a lot of cases, and I had to have some strong discipline shaped on me to help to shape the guy that I am. There was one in particular in high school, my basketball coach. I mean, he told me I can leave, just go.
Wow.
And I left my junior year. And when I left, he took a chance to let me come back my senior year.
Okay.
But I think had he not ran me off my junior year, I don't know that I would have recognized just how much I needed him, more so than he needed me. I had a chip on my shoulder. I thought I was pretty good. That you need me. But when him running me off, it took me a long time to realize that. But I look back at it now, we're best of friends. His name is David Corley. He actually was the principal at Fairfield Central, but he was my high school coach in basketball. And we're great friends, and I reach back to him a lot and tell him, man, I really appreciate the things that you've done for me.
Wow.
And I fast forward. Had an opportunity to go to college. And
hold up. Let's pause right there, right? I don't want to skip over the jewels and the gems that are, lying under your story and in your story. I mean, you talked about him kicking you off, essentially, or allowing you to leave.
That's right.
Did that teach you a personal accountability? What lesson or what attribute you felt like you gained in and through the hardship of essentially being pushed out and then having the humility to come back? Like, what did you gain, and what made you come back, and what were your parents saying during this time frame?
Well, so once I wasn't playing anymore, it was time to come home and do chores. That was the deal. But what I learned is that the team is bigger than the individual.
Come on.
You've got to be willing to sacrifice yourself for the benefit of the team. And that was a lesson that we all learned at some point. Now, when I was coming through, there was very little opportunity to play on outside leagues and learn that. So most of that you learn through school and through discovery and all in your neighborhood.
Yep.
So the big thing that I learned is the team is bigger than the individual, which it is. And, and listen, I will preach that from any time moving forward. When I coached the exact same way. The team has to be bigger than the individual.
Yep.
And that's probably one of the biggest things I could learn out of that.
Wow. And you saying the team being bigger than the individual, the we versus me mindset,
That's
right?
correct.
We're going to come back to your story and visit, college and, the things. But looking at the landscape of athletics now, how would you say it's changed? The mindset of the athlete, the mindset of parents, the mindset of coaches. Like, have you seen a viral infection of selfishness being injected in our culture? And if so, how has that affected South Carolina athletics?
Well, yeah, it's growing. There are more outside entities that get involved with sports now than they have in the past. There was a time growing up where kids had the opportunity to go outside and just get together and put a team together and play. We'll play against each other. Well, I remember lining up.
Yep.
And two captains get there and you choose.
Yep.
You hope to get chosen so you get a chance to play. And that's the way you learn. But it also provides you opportunity for creativity. And also in the community or the neighborhood, the kids know who could play what.
Yep.
If you're the quarterback, we know that you're the quarterback. If you're not the quarterback, you need to hike the ball.
Yeah.
That's your job. And block.
Yeah.
And even, trying to elevate ourselves up higher. When we played, if the older kids played and we played basketball, your job was to throw the ball in bounds, get the rebound, and give it to the person that can score with. That's it. Now, you might get a shot if you get a rebound under the basket, you put it back up. If you make it, fine, but if you miss, you're going to get fussed that you should have thrown the ball out to me. If we were doing football, your job early is to hike the ball. We didn't even call the center. We just call you the hiker and the blocker. And then on defense, you rush the quarterback. And as time go along, you get a chance. We'll give you a pass as a trick play. And we find that you can do it, then we may use you again. Even in baseball, you wasn't a catcher. You were the back catcher. You were the backstop. That's all you was. Your job was to get the ball and throw it back to the pitcher for the play. If there's a play at home, the pitcher's going to come there. You get out of the way so the pitcher can make the play at home. That was your role. You get a chance to bat, and they're going to take you last. If you get 2 strikes on you, somebody will say, I got your last batter if you got 2 strikes on you. So all that became part of the learning process, but it wasn't organized. And what happens when it's not organized, it gives you a chance to be creative. When they don't guide you, say, well, this is what you got to do. You get to try things out for yourself and do it. But when it's organized, it's kind of too locked in. Well, that's where we are today. Everything is organized. You got trainers. You've got groups out there that figure that they can teach you to be a better player than what the school can. So now there's this big push that you got to go to camp. And then the pressure now becomes on the coaches that they've got to get involved and be more involved longer to have a better team, because the community believes that if you're not working, you're doing a disservice to their kids. Well, I love the way that coaches can be involved with their kids, because they're a great role model. But it needs to be about more than X's and O's. They need to teach them how to be men. They need to teach them how to be women. That's the role they need to play. But if they have to spend all their time to be X's and O's to satisfy what we would consider to be helicopter parents that's standing over them all the time, that makes it a bit of a challenge. And it takes so much away from their time. So I've heard people talk about, well, they get paid so much money to do this type of thing. You're not paying them for the coaching. You're paying them to stop raising their own kids and come raise yours. There's a difference. So now their time that they get to spend with their family and kids need to be premium. They need to be able to create memorable experience, because they're going to miss the small things. They said their first word today, or they just took their first step, and you missed that because you're out there
coaching,
raising somebody else's kids. Right. So what you've got to do is provide them the funding so that their time with their family is premium time because there's so little of that time available for them. So all those things, I think, points us in a direction of where it moves away from team and goes more to me and I and you know, my self-gratification. That's a struggle. And when that happens, you know, it kind of takes away from the lessons that you can actually learn from it. You know, because you can't win all the time.
Come on.
But what happens when you don't win? You know, how are you going to respond to that?
How do you? Yep.
Yeah.
And in that, I'm trying to be very careful, right? Because don't want to put any particular person on the spot, right? Because a lot of things have occurred in past seasons, in this current season. But what is your guidance to the athlete or the coach when they do lose? Like, how should they respond? How should they show sportsmanship? What are those things that should be on display?
And I can only speak to school athletics, educational athletics. And it's there for a particular reason. It's a calculated effort to create challenges and develop opportunities for responses. So even in winning or losing, there's a teachable moment that occurs. So I put it on the coaches first. They are the most impressionable person that the student athlete will look at. So whatever action they take is what's going to be gold for them. Whatever action they take. So they got to recognize that they're paying attention to them. So we take victory or defeat and use it as a teachable moment. How will we respond when it doesn't work? We laid everything on the table. We gave it our best. We did everything we possibly can, and we still came up short. What's the response? Teachable moment exists. How do we respond when things worked out real well? You know, do we take that victory and use it as a pedestal, and everybody comes and kiss your ring, or do you use it as a platform? You've got the attention of people now. So how do you use it as a platform to make things better for whatever group you want to make it for? That's where we got to look at it. And that's, as long as we keep it as an opportunity for a teachable moment. And we depend on the adults to be that first. Be that teachable moment. Help those impressionable ones to understand that we're not going to win all the time. We're not going to lose all the time either, but we're not going to win all the time. It's how we respond at that point. Where are we?
Hey family, are you in the need of a speaker or host at your next event? If that is the case, I am your guy. For years, I've been blessed to do both of those things at a high level, and I want to help you in your event, whether it be a school, church, or organization, go to the next level.
He was amazing, especially in this environment of teenagers. It's like the perfect speaker for someone who's going to reach them, have a similar story to them, been through some pain, a lot of pain, but knows that there's purpose in pain.
I look forward to hearing from you and partnering with you so that we can all live out our greatness together.
So you said something powerful. You said, don't use it as a pedestal, but use it as a platform.
Use it as a platform.
And I think that is powerful, right? Knowing that, like you said, the way, here's a phrase, like more is caught than taught, right? And so for you, going back to, you know, high school athletics and then college athletics, when you got to college, right? Talk a little bit about your coaches, what they displayed, the characteristics they exuded, and how those things are now like infused into your leadership and how you move and how you shape, you know, in your current position.
Let me preface it first by saying I went to Newberry College. I'm very proud. I wear the Newberry College ring all the time. Newberry College at that time probably wasn't what I wanted, but Newberry College was what I needed. And I'm going to go back. I went to a school that was 98% all black. So had very little intermingling or conversation with a white community. Just wasn't. I mean, my neighborhood was predominantly black. My school was predominantly black. When I went to Newberry, which wasn't originally my first choice, but my best friend, and I would tell you, James Waring is my best friend. We were, from the time we were growing up, if you saw him, you saw me. And that's what it was. Well, he says, well, I want to go to Newberry and play ball. So we went to Newberry instead to play football. I went with him. Well, when we got there was 1,000 students there. 40 blacks total. A total change in culture, the way I saw things.
Wow.
40 total. 22 were athletes.
Wow.
12 were girls.
Wow.
And 8 were non-athlete male.
Yeah.
And those were all the blacks there. So here I am coming from a comfort zone of just knowing everything that's around me to a very uncomfortable situation that I just because of ignorance, just didn't know what was there. So
And what time period was this?
this was from 77 to 81. And it has grown tremendously since that time. And I am now, actually I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for Newberry College. But it was what I needed at the time because it started to shape things a little bit differently for me. It exposed me to a different group. And I've always had confidence in myself that I can maneuver wherever I am.
Yep.
But this was a challenge for a 17-year-old to look out there and see that.
Yeah.
So going there and of course sports was the uniting piece. Got to meet a lot of people. The coaches that we had there, ironically, my head coach, when I first got there, left after my first year, and the coach that came in, when I played in high school, he was coaching at one of the high schools.
Wow.
So the new head coach, Reed Sharpie, and he just had a way of bringing things together because he coached a team that had both white and blacks on the team over the years.
Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah. And being able to experience that level of difference and turbulence, right? We're talking 77
Absolutely.
to 81, right? The racial climate there was a lot different,
totally different
than it is now.
Yeah.
Just for a brief moment, I would love for you to share a story where things may have been said to you in a disrespectful manner that made you make a decision of whether or not you were going to lash out or whether or not you were going to show strength using restraint. Do you have a time during your college period? Because that's, for me, that's when, people seem to be more outspoken. They get a grip of who they are. I mean, during that time period, there were certain, racial comments. So do you have a story?
Well, I mean, there are many stories. The upperclassmen that were there kind of took us under their wing and kind of sheltered us from a lot of things. Now, I also recognize there were people that were working at Newberry College in a custodial manner or in a cafeteria manner that always seemed to be around. And when I look back, I think they were kind of like guardian angels looking over us to make sure that things are going well, and probably guided me away from a lot of problems that I could have created for myself as I went along the way. So I mean, I'm sure there are many examples that I could come up with, but I knew one thing. I better not come back home. Because if you go and spend your parents' money to go to school, and then you come back home with nothing, my dad used to say all the time, a pink slip or a sheepskin. Either one, I'm done. You just tell me where we are. So I knew coming home was not an option. So I knew I had to be tolerant or figure out another way to make it work. Because that's where I was. And I wasn't even wise to things as far as transferring to another college. I didn't know about that. I mean, once I went in, I was committed to where I am. And I knew I had 4 years to get it done because they don't have the money to waste for me doing anything else. So I think that helped me to temper where I am, the youthness that I had and the inexperience that I had, and forced me to say, what's another way? What's another way? And I'll look back again, the upperclassmen that looked at it and they kind of guided us of, what could happen, and here's how you got to deal with it so that it make it work.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's super cool. You talked about those guardian angels and, your upperclassmen, that peer-to-peer leadership.
Yes.
As you transition through college and you start going into the educational realm, could you pinpoint, because I want to give the audience, a clear picture into, you know, some of the mistakes you potentially made to humanize you a little bit, right? Because I think, you know, along in this interview, we hear about all of the amazing opportunities, the amazing people, the characteristics that you, you know, acclaim to and that you are, you know, centered by. But what were those key early mistakes you made during your, you know, educational entry that you say, man, I really made that mistake and I've learned from it and it's helped me get to the position I'm in now?
First one being, like I said, when I thought I was bigger than the team in high school and walked away. It was a grave mistake.
Yeah.
But got another opportunity
sure.
to kind of correct that. Going to Newberry College, I mean, what I originally thought was really a mistake for me, it truly turned out to be my benefit. I mean, I didn't want to be there, but I didn't have any options to come back because I had to get used to a new group. You know, even when I went and started my job working in the field, I started as a coach and a teacher. And started out at Greenwood, and I'm sure I made hundreds of mistakes, but was protected. I remember the principal bringing me in and says, "You can't say that to these kids. You can't do that. You know? You got to be careful with those type of things." But every one of them, they gave me a second chance, and I've always prided myself on being obedient. You know, if somebody tells me to do something, and it's in my best interest, then I pay attention to it to do it. So when I got my first job at Greenwood, and I was coaching and teaching, and just fortune just keeps falling upon me. I had a teacher that taught social studies, and her name was Miss Piles. And she looked at me and she said, "You know what? You need to go in administration." I said, "Yeah, I think I might one day." She said, "Well, we just hired a new superintendent. Go tell him you want to be an administrator." I said, "Well, I don't have an administrator." She said, "Go tell the man that you want to be an administrator." So I pride myself on being obedient. So I went to him and I said, "Listen, Dr. Watson, I'd like to become an administrator." He said, "You would?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, come by my office." Went by his office and met him. The very next year, he says, "You know what? I'm going to make you an assistant principal." Didn't have all the credentials at that time. Working toward it, but didn't have all the credentials. So here you got a guy that comes out of being a coach and a teacher. Now you got him as an administrator dealing with kids across the board, not just the ones in your class, across the board. A lot of mistakes were made. I was saying, "How do you handle this?" You know, again, the principal would come and say, "You can't do that. You can't just tell kids stuff like this. You got to watch how you do things." So to point out one thing, Duane, it would be tough. I just know that throughout the whole process, I am so fortunate that I was given second chances each time.
I think it's dope though, because the word that's coming to my mind right now is reputation capital, meaning your reputation preceded itself and people believed in you, believed in your capabilities, believed in your character, right? And oftentimes when people give people second chances, it's because, hey, we will all make mistakes. We are born in sin. I'm a believer. We are born in sin. But how you manage that mistake and learn from it will determine your character and your position in life. And I believe like people have seen that over and over again. I think that's key for those that are watching, right? The mistakes you make, how will you bounce back from it? And how do you manage continuing to elevate your reputation capital in the marketplace? I think that's a key thing. And with that being said, you are a commissioner now. Right? Where perception is reality, where reputation capital is paramount. What were the things you did that elevated you in the marketplace from assistant principal to now the commissioner of the high school league?
So when I first went to become an assistant principal, it was at a junior high school. And I did that for a year. I was still in Greenwood. I had a longing to still coach and wanted to move back closer to home where my mom was and spend some time with her. So an opportunity came for me to become a head coach at Burke High School.
In Charleston,
in Charleston. I came back there. Really enjoyed that experience. Again, I got to tell you, there were so many people that were impactful to me. Mr. Gilliard being the principal there. He took a 27-year-old kid and turned over his athletic football program to him.
Yep.
And that was me. And he mentored me throughout the process. He, along with Earl Brown, the things I thought I knew, I wasn't even close.
Yeah.
You know, I learned so much through the experience about being a head coach in an inner city school, which I think was very beneficial to me.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole different experience. I was an old country boy. I grew up in Charleston. So
Yeah.
here I am in inner city, dealing with inner city students, dealing with an inner city climate, an inner city neighborhood, and just learned so much from that. And then I did that for 4 years. And I'd like to think that I left it better than I found it, that I've made some lasting impact. I still get calls from some of the kids that, grown men and women now that played for me, that they appreciated my work that I've done, and listen, was doing it all without looking for any type of accolade. Just enjoyed what I was doing and took my rearing and tried to impart some of those type of things on them. But after 4 years, I came back to Columbia. A lot of people don't know, when Dutch Fork first opened, I was assistant principal there.
Wow.
That's where I started. I came back, a gentleman by the name of Keith Calicut, who was a mentor for me when I was going through the principalship, getting my certification for that. He says, I'm getting ready to open a brand new school. I'd like for you to come be a part of it.
Wow.
So here I am, moving from coaching, again, into an administrative.
Did he say why he wanted you to be a part of
He
it?
just felt like I was a fit.
Wow.
He was a fit. In fact, when I came and took the interview, very little conversation was held about credentials. It was about, what are your thought process on these type of things? What do you think about these things? It was more of a conversation than it was an interview. And he made me feel comfortable, and we could talk about anything.
Wow.
And again, another great experience, opening a brand new school,
Wow.
being a part of that. And 3 years later, I was met by the commissioner at that time, who was there, was Pete Ayub. He came to a basketball game, and he says, Jerome, how you doing? I said, I'm good. I'm Mr. Ayub, because I knew him as being the executive director. He said, you ever thought about working at the South Carolina High School League? I said, no, I don't really know enough about it to know. He said, well, I want you to think about that. And I did. And we came and I took the interview, and I got the job and became in the modern South Carolina High School League, because there used to be two separate leagues. There used to be one for Black Association, then there was a White Association. Then they combined in 1969.
Yep.
And I think the director there actually came on to be a part of the staff, but didn't stay very long. But so you figure from 69 all the way to 95, I believe that's when I came in, there was no minorities in a executive position. So I came here, and I was the first. I was the first, and worked here. And when he left, Ronnie Matthews took over, who was an assistant, and I became his associate. And when he left, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to do this. Now, I think I would hope that it was based on my merits that I got the job, as opposed to just being the next person in line to get it. I wanted to be good at whatever role they gave me, without looking at trying to take somebody else's job. I just wanted to be very good at what I did. And I think I got here because there were Black administrators that said, we just don't have representation there. I think we need to take consideration into that. And while the executive committee had Blacks on it, they didn't have it on the staff. And when I came here, I was one of the few. And then as time progressed, I was very fortunate. I mean, this job has afforded me experiences that I don't know that I could have gained anywhere else.
I think that the statement that stood out to me as you were speaking was, I did the job not looking for any accolades. I did the job not looking for any accolades. And I think that is so rare for an individual to actually say that and mean it, right? A lot of people talk about wanting to serve, wanting to be of service, wanting to lead. But they believe that leadership is a position and not an action or a characteristic.
Correct.
But I believe in hearing you talk and also seeing the fruit of your life and all of the people that vouched for you, put their name on the line for you, that you actually did and still do exude the mind frame of, I do this not looking for any accolades.
Exactly right.
And I just want to say thank you for doing that. And I want to get to the meat and the bones of, why people even, want to have us sit in front of each other, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's the thing that we know the South Carolina High School League is like super important. And it's been established since 1913, correct?
Absolutely.
And with it being such a long-standing establishment, many people feel as if it could be an outdated institution. I don't believe that, but a lot of people have their views and their takes.
Sure.
And with a new motion to potentially dissolve the high school league, how do you feel about that? What is your thought process? And what do you have to say to the individuals that try to discredit the amount of value you guys bestow to the athletes and to the state itself?
So we're living in a world where instant information is not only expected, but is required. A lot of people don't know the history of what has been in place. This place has been around since 1913. It's been fortunate that the commissioners, or at that time was executive directors, had longevity. I mean, there's only 5 of us that have existed that have done it. But it has pivoted. The job that I took back in 2005 is not the job that I have now. It has changed so much because we're looking for instant gratification. We're looking for instant information, looking for a question to be posed, and for an answer to be given instantaneously. Well, if we're dealing with a product, that might be suffice. But we're dealing with people. And you got to be very mindful and careful of decisions that you make that affects people. Say, if we're affecting a product, we can throw the product away and just rebuild it again. You can't do that to an impressionable mind. If you make a mistake with the most precious thing that a parent can give you, that's not acceptable. My staff will tell you, I said, oops is never an excuse. We don't get to do that because we're dealing with people. So when these groups get together thinking that they have a better plan or can do it better, they need to understand how it works. There's more to it than just doing state championships. This organization was created to be regulatory by design. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Want to make sure everybody behave the exact same way. Everybody needs to know that this is the rule that we're going to operate under. Absolutely, that works. That works. But what about the experience that the kids go through? Since we've got the captive audience, what do we want to do to make sure that it becomes something memorable to them that's been positive? That's been positive. What about their health and wellness? What do we think about their mental state at these times? So we can't sit back and think that they're going to learn these things through osmosis. Oh, well, they'll learn leadership. They'll learn hard work. How do you know? Leadership, hard work today is not what hard work was before. For a long time, we operated in from the agricultural age to the industrial age, where you hear a horn and then you go to work, and then at 5 o'clock you go home. Well, people are working at home already. I mean, so we're already in a technological or information age. So what are the lessons? How do we pivot to make sure that it's heard? And I think today's kids are so much smarter than the one that came through when I was there, that if the coach said so, there was no question. You just did it. I mean, there was no research to go see whether he knows what he's talking about. Well, today
you can check. You
can
can
check right then and there while he's talking. You know, and do those things. So we just got to be very intentional about what we're trying to experience for, what we want their experience to be. We got to be very intentional about it. And if it's about the kids, I think the guidance will take care of itself. And these outside entities that think that they can come in and do a better job, I mean, are we willing to use a person to decide whether we did a good job or not? do we get to say oops? See, as long as we're doing a product, that's fine. But when we're talking about a person, the most precious possession that any parent has, oops can't be part of the consideration. We're not going to try this and see if it works, and if it don't work, we're going to throw it away. You've left an impression now. That doesn't go away. That's it. That's embedded in that kid's memory for a while, and it might shape the way they think about things.
Yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway I get from what you're saying that other entities may not fully consider is you guys have a set framework in place that mitigates as much danger as possible. Though you may not agree with all of the things that are instituted when it comes to safety, when it comes to upbuildment and empowerment, and putting people in position to experience the educational, athletic spirit of things, it's safe, right?
Yes.
And people want to, what I'm getting is people want to experiment on our impressionable kids because of a disagreement here and there. And that is not what you want. That's not what the state really wants. But again, one or two people desire, this or that. But I do have to ask some specific questions that have been submitted that I think are some fair asks, right?
It is.
And, one of the things that I am personally interested in, because I did cover basketball specifically for a long time, is the change in venues, right? The everything being central to Florence, South Carolina.
Yes.
Why can't we have the upper state game back in Greenville, the lower state game in Florence, and come back to the, to the Coliseum, to, Colonial Life Arena?
Colonial Life Arena.
Why is that a thing that cannot happen, or is it possible?
Well, I think it's probably possible. One of the challenges that why we went to where we are was after COVID, it was hard to find venues that could house what we need. And then when we were in COVID, we had limited space or limited, I don't know what the term is, but we could only allow so many people to be in a venue at one time for safety purposes.
For sure.
As that became relaxed, then it grew. Well, the spaces that we were using could no longer hold that. Now, Colonial Life Arena also became very expensive to be able to afford to do it. The Bon Secours in Greenville no longer became available. They're hosting SEC championship during that period. So now we've got to find another venue for the upper state. Well, I don't know of any that could meet our seating requirement, especially with the fan base that we have that want to get in there.
Bob Jones was a place you guys...
Bob Jones was a great place to do it. When we used to host it, where we played a game, we emptied facilities and brought a new community in. Now we charge one ticket price and you can stay all day. The worst thing you can do to a community that has supported their team all year and they're playing the last game of that session to say nobody else can get in. So we got to have something that can handle the seating. And so the pushback is, well, then use colleges. It's a great idea. Except if the college team makes a playoff and they get to host, they're going to want the place back. And what do we do? And actually, that's real because when we were at the USC Aiken one year, they made the playoffs. And the president told me, he says, I'm going to stand by my commitment. They went to Georgia to play a home game, which they hosted.
Which is crazy.
He said, I can't do that again. So I know that I can't, and we can't sit back and say, well, we got to pivot and find another place because they tell us at the last minute we can't use that place. Colonial Life Arena is very expensive. So Florence was available. We even looked at Charleston. I mean, they had an interest at one time, but it was non-affordable. This was what works best for us if we want to give the experience. I still believe the Final Four, I'm not trying to steal somebody's trademark of calling it Final Four, but I think the Final Four scenario is a great experience for kids.
For sure.
And if you ask the kids, I think they'll tell you that that's what works. Now, is it inconvenient? Absolutely. But are we willing to trade inconvenience for a great experience for kids? That's the difference.
I like it. I like it. The only pushback I would have, right? I am the community representative right now, is can we work something out with Colonial Life, right? This is, Don Staley, Lamont Parrish, like, Asia, will you, can we get some type of collaboration where we see it being held in the state capitol as something of not necessarily charity, but it's also like, if you can make it affordable enough, it would add that spark. But Florence is amazing. Florence is amazing. So next question is this. Okay, you want to address that? Okay.
Stay on that. Okay. So we are entering into conversations about that again.
Okay,
and
sweet.
What our schools have to do, I mean, we can't use state championship as a fundraiser to meet our budget as schools. So what schools have to also make a decision on is that we will forego the fund that could be made in the state championship for the experience, for the kids. So
can
now
you throw out some numbers so I can be fully aware of
what
would be received and what they would have to forego?
Probably it probably would cost right at about, if we do it 3 days and we didn't do the semifinals, we can't do the semifinals and the finals at Colonial Life because they're still in the season. But there's a great possibility we could use the 3 days and play our state championship. We're talking 12 state championship contests. So it's going to take about 3 days to get that done.
Yep.
All right. So when we were last there for a night and a day, it cost us in excess of $100,000.
Okay.
So we got to figure, and we hadn't been there in a bunch of years. Inflation plays their role.
Yeah. And
we're asking to be able to use it more times. So I would use for a simple number, and don't quote me that that's the actual number because I haven't gotten it from them yet. Maybe 150, 175,000
per night.
No, for the 3 days.
For the 3 days.
For the 3 days.
Okay.
All right. Then the schools that normally walk away with, and on their best case, probably $2,500, $3,000 for having to play in the state championship. Are they willing to forego that? Are they willing to say, you know what, I'll let the money go and we'll just have a great experience.
So if they're willing to forego that, would that make it a higher chance for?
I think it becomes something that's a little bit more, we can have a better conversation with. Yeah. That we can go in and talk and says, you know what, when he says, well, Jerome, I can get it down, we can do it for $100,000. If our member schools are willing to say, you know what, let's give the kids the experience.
Yeah.
That's more important than anything I can get from that gate.
Yeah, but what is usually done with the funding they do receive from, participating in the state championship?
Right. We give it back to the schools.
Got you.
The league gets 20%.
Yeah.
And the 80% is shared back among the schools.
Got you. I'm saying, have you heard stories of how they've used those
by
funds?
rings. By rings, by plaques, by, patches. I mean, all those things. I mean, it's real that they could use that money for something if they can.
Yeah.
But, then you got to compromise the experience to do that.
Yeah.
Which is more important.
But if the kids can't receive rings because they don't receive the funding, so they will win the state without receiving rings, or do you?
So my opinion is
that's when sponsorships will have to come
into
play.
Does
community
too,
sponsorships.
That does too. But in the earlier rounds, I don't think anybody budgets playoff as part of their budget. I think that's a plus.
I got you.
So if you operate and you end up on the positive, those are monies that can go to rings and go to patches. And you got to go 4 rounds before you even get to the finals. So you just got to make a decision whether, what's more important. I know some people count on the playoff dollars because they're operating upside down, but you can't budget it because there's no guarantee that you're going to make the playoffs, and definitely there's no guarantee you'll go deep into the playoffs.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, super cool. Well, it's out there for the public now. You heard the numbers. You're fully aware of what's going on. I think one of the other big topics of discussion is, when it comes to clock situations, shot clocks. Will those things be instituted? And if so, when?
Actually, I think with the shot clock, I think that's always up for conversation. But let's picture this. Again, let's go back. Educational athletics. All right. I've got a team of 6'8". Right? You got a team of 6-footers. All right. We got a shot clock. All right. So all I got to do is sit back. I got an extra defensive player. You got to shoot. You can't hold it. You get the lead, I don't worry about it because you got to shoot. See what I'm saying? So we go to the other end, and now we go to the other end, I can score. So you said, listen, for me to have my best chance, is I got to pull you out of that zone. And you're not as quick as we are, so we're going to be able to run around you and get some basket. If not, they've got a 6th player, the clock. You got to shoot. You have no option and it would be different. Shot clock is good at the college level, in my opinion, and the pro level, because you get to go across the state or across the country to select your athletes. You got 6'5"? Well, I'll go get them 6'5". They're not in your school. So how do you give your kids their best chance? We got to continue to talk about why we offer the sport. It's very entertaining. And people like fast pace and they want to see these things and make them move. That's great. But and the shot clock prepares them for the next level. Well, how many get to go to the next level? That's so few.
It's crazy though, Commissioner, because I guess in Columbia, and I feel like statewide, we have experienced a lot of athletes go to the next level. We have a lot of people playing professional, both NFL, NBA, overseas, MLB, soccer. We have a lot of, and you're a part of that. You provide the platform for people to come up, grow, and develop. So I think a lot of people see the sports arena as a lot of people's vehicle to achieve, financial gain or career opportunities. But I wanna go back to basketball, and not even basketball, just athletics in particular, and talk about the charter schools, the Grays of the world, and the other schools of that nature. There's always a lot of talk about them having a higher level of success because of advantages. Can you speak to how that is regulated? What is the actual guidance when it comes to those type of schools?
So they are actually mandated by law to be treated like every other school. But by their very makeup, it lends itself to be a little bit more flexible than most. The fact that they have an ability to, for lack of a better term, cap their enrollment, which means that if you can get a selected few and your enrollment is capped, the lower the classification, the fewer athletes you need. You get at the 1A, 2A level, you get 3 or 4 good athletes, you're pretty successful. If you take that same 1A, 2A level, you got 10 good athletes, you are very successful.
Unbeatable.
That's right. But you get to manufacture that advantage by the fact that you get, for lack of a better term, to cap your enrollment. There are some state mandates that allow them to draw from a larger area than most are entitled to, or at least their competition is entitled to. That gives them an opportunity to be, again, more advantageous, to take a school that's in rural Clinton. Well, every kid that plays at Clinton lives in Clinton, and then you take a school that's in, for lack of a better term, a school district. Richland 1, Richland 2, Lexington 1, Lexington 2. Well, they get to draw from all of Lexington 2 in the case of Gray. And they just pick another charter school, I can tell you what district they're in, they can draw all from. But they get to play against Clinton, who has what they have, but that is a bigger group to draw from.
Do you see an issue with this?
Oh, yeah, but I think it is, but I don't know an answer to it, especially when it's legislated. We got to follow law.
For sure.
Law is in place, but it does create a problem for a balanced playing field. It does, and that's no secret, but you've got to follow. There are just some things that you have to do. Unless the law changes, their advantage is not league legislated. It's state legislatively legislated.
But what do we teach our kids when, yes, they may have an advantage, but I enforce my kids to not play against this school because it's deemed unfair? Do you think that is, and we talk about educational athletics, do you think that is a good lesson to teach at this level in high school?
I will always reach back and say, teachable moments exist, and that's why we offer the sport. There's a teachable moment that occurs. That advantage that or perceived advantage that's been given, how are you going to deal with it? Is the answer to not play, or is the answer to, let's give it our best shot and see what we got? Is winning more important than the opportunity for the teachable moment? Nothing is learned by not playing. You just missed out on a great opportunity by not playing. But you've got to figure out what fits. I don't want to send, but I also won't send a kid into a gunfight with a slingshot. You got to feel you got a chance. I mean, because again, we're talking impressionable minds. There's just such a big balancing act that has to occur. You don't want to send them into instant failure.
For sure. For sure. And you have that like parental instinct as a coach, because you care about them, as young men and as young women. So I understand, and I also agree with your first point. But to go to, and I'm wrapping up. I don't want to hold you here too long, but to go to, the mental health aspect of athletics, right? There are a lot of kids that are struggling with self-esteem, with, having the belief in themselves, with understanding that failure is inevitable and can be the stepping stool, and not a pedestal, but a platform. How do you institute healthy mental health practices for all of the athletes under your guidance?
So we actually believe more in educating than mandating. So we find all the things in the world is so much more accessible to us now. So we've even hired a director of health, wellness, and safety. And that's his main focus. How do we protect the physical, mental, and emotional health of our student athletes, those that we know that we have? So we find all the information we can and we put it out to the schools and we make them aware of it. Again, educated as opposed to mandated it, because a lot of times when you just mandate, no education takes place. They're just doing it because you said so. But if you educate them and they choose to exercise it, and I think intelligent minds will use what is in their best interest if they are made aware of it or have been exposed to it. That's the role we've got to play in doing this. We've got to educate them, and we've got to be so mindful of the, for lack of a better term, the mental health of our student athletes, which, by the way, has always been an issue. It's just easier to detect it now than it had in the past. I mean, it's for years that's been a problem. We just got to figure, if we can figure out a way to help to address that, we can. And I'm sure as we find ways to address those, other things will surface that we need to be a part of and be able to address. And I keep pointing back to, because I was a coach, pointing back that they play such a crucial role. And winning is not always what defines a coach. I'm going to give you a couple examples. There'll be coaches that'll win every game, never lose, and the kids go undefeated. But yet, when the kids come home from being away, why they don't go see the coach? If you were such an impression, why wouldn't you just see the coach? Then you got some.
You busting a little, you busting some bubbles right
Then
here.
you got some that don't win many games at all. And they come home and say, "I'll be right back. I got to go see coach." So it's got to be about more than winning. More than winning. We all like to sit back and have, be pat on the back. Coach, you're the best thing happened. I am who I am today because of you. I really appreciate all that you've done. But if you're in it long enough, there's also that kid will come back and say, you know what? At my weakest time, you let me down. When I was knothead, for sure. I wasn't, just like I was when I was in high school. For sure, instead of you taking me in and making me different, you just let me go. So now that's the story that you get that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because that hurts. But we all like the one where they pat you on the back and say, great, and you got the big chest out and the smile on your face. But both exist if you're in it long enough. So the coach, their role is so critical and so impressionable. One area I want to go back to, because I like the thought that people like to use athletics. This is their vehicle to move and to better. Well, let me give you some numbers.
Okay.
We got 90,000 athletes every year. All right? And let's be generous. Let's be generous. We won't even say 25% of them are seniors. Let's just go 10% seniors. That's 9,000 that were seniors that could go to the next level in something. There's not enough of that happening.
Yeah.
There's not 9,000 people getting scholarships.
Especially
so when they
now.
say, that's right. So when they say a lot, what is considered a lot?
Yeah.
And if we take the number down and say, okay, well, 300 did. Fine. We got 90,000 kids that play, 9,000 that were seniors.
Yeah, still 8,700. You know that.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's where we got. That's the reality piece to it.
Yeah.
So while these things are there, I think we need to spend our efforts on how that 8,700 feels when they leave, as opposed to that 300 that got scholarships. And those numbers are not factual now. They're just numbers that we're operating under, estimated numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And, I just want to plug myself. I just want to let Coach know that I am available for, the instruction and empowerment of the athletes. We'll visit that off camera, But, one of the last, couple of things I want to ask you, we're going to wrap up. When we talk about your job specifically, right? Sure. And we talk about the stress that you're under. We talk about the necessity to be a quick conflict resolution specialist. We talk about how to lead well, right? What would you say is the most important part of your job? And also, what is the hardest part of your job? So those two things, most important and the hardest.
Yeah, I think the most important piece is for me to be consistent. And for me to be, my idea is to be well thought out. I used to think that if I'm not moving around or touching something, I'm not working. And a friend of mine pointed out to me, he said, there is a role called strategic thinking. And sometimes you've got to stop and settle and don't move so that strategic thinking can take place. Now, that only can happen if you're fortunate enough to have a good staff that can take care of the day-to-day operations. And then they don't have to look at what's next. That's my job, is what's next. So I've been blessed with the staff that I have to be able to do that. That's probably the most important piece for me to be consistent and have a well thought out decision. The hardest piece, again, is I got to know right now. Give me the answer right now. They want instant answers to sometimes things that are very new. And you don't want instant answers to things that are new. You want well thought out decisions being made.
And that's, it's funny, right? Because I think on the outside looking in, we can see the position. You can see what comes with it, the authority, the power, the being held up in the light. But we don't see, those nights where you're contemplating like, okay, should I crash out and say this to this parent or this person in the legal office or to this coach who is disrespecting me? So I just want to say I am extremely honored and proud that you have navigated it with grace, right? And so the last question is this. At the age that you're at now, you've accomplished a lot of things. We didn't get into a lot of what you've accomplished because there were a little more important things on the docket. But going forward, what is the most important goal you have for yourself to complete before you die?
I think it's always been said that your life will be either a warning or an example. If you do things well, they'll recognize that as an example, and they may try to emulate that in some way. If you do things not well, then they would recognize you as a warning. So I think if all that you do, if you think about it as being, you want it to be recognized as an example, that'll guide you. Now, if you don't care, then it will be recognized as a warning because you will make foolish mistakes or deliberate, wrongdoings. I've enjoyed what I've done. This this position has afforded me and my family so many opportunities to see things around the world. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a bigger purpose than just South Carolina. You know, a national presence. I wouldn't trade it. What does it have its issues and wear me out sometimes? Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it, but if I had to have a job, I'd want this job. And if I'm going to work, why not work this job? Because I believe in what it is. I believe in its whole purpose. I understand, and we constantly have to search why it exists and why we do what we do. What we do and how we do it is second to why we do it. Once we can figure out why, then what and how becomes easy. But we can express how and what's so easy. But when you pin somebody down and you were to walk in and say, Jerome, I know all that you do. Tell me why you do it. That calls for pause. Because that's not thought about a bunch. But it really ought to be the driving thing of everything we do. Why you do it, once you settle that, the rest of it gets so easy. It gets so easy.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. It's often said, you know, when you desire to be great, you desire to do things of great magnitude, it means you are signing up to solve all of the great problems that exist in the world. And so thank you for being a problem solver, for being well thought out, for being a leader and a leading force, a trailblazer. You're first in many categories. And so, yeah, we honor you, we appreciate you, and we want to rally around you as, you know, things go under attack and people have these discussions. But I think everybody has left with a good sense of who you are, what you stand for, and the problems that you do solve in your heart. And I believe everybody, after listening to this, may still disagree with certain things, but they cannot question why you do what you do. So that's honorable, and I appreciate you. You know, we may need a part two. If you want part two, let us know below. We can get more into the leadership things, but if this is suffice, let us know that as well. But I appreciate you, sir.
I'll make myself available.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My friend.